We're back for the second half of our interview with Matthew Colling on the Congolese refugee problem. Thanks for joining us here at the Open Source News.
Around the world. Bukavu is an AIDS-ravaged region, much like a lot of the African regions that are cut off from a substantial amount of government help, and so we're going into a place that suffers from post-traumatic war stress. It suffers from refugees. It suffers from the AIDS epidemic. It suffers from the lack of government. It suffers from the lack of any stability economically speaking, and the children who we support have very little help. When I say very little, I essentially mean none, just besides what we offer, and it's not a lot. It's all we can do to pay for the teachers' salaries, which right. we just were able to do recently. So they had worked for a year and a half with no money, based on the salaries that we would potentially give them later, and we've just delivered on that promise to give you an idea of conditions in an area like that.
And the population you're talking about here is mainly displaced refugees from the Rwandan conflict, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, after the Rwandan conflict, you had a lot of basically Hutus that were involved in mass murder, and were no longer, didn't really have a home in Rwanda any longer. So after the Tutsis came back, a lot of those Hutu fled over the borders to the eastern Congo region, and they had not a lot of welcome there either. I mean, considering the conflict they had just been involved in. So you had a massive refugee camp in Bukavu alone, and those the Hutu rebels, essentially, you have a mix of Hutus and Tutsis still fighting in eastern Congo now, which are all a fallout from the Rwandan genocide. Now, our school was originally those orphans that were left when a lot of those Hutus in that refugee camp in Bukavu was dispersed or displaced by the Congolese government. That's where our children, our orphans, came from, that we took into our school. They had no home. And that's what happens when, you know, a massive several hundred thousand refugee camp up and leaves in an instant. Children get left behind.
Right. So, first of all, a lot of people ask the kind of cliched question, how can we help? And I think I mean like we on the ground. Is there an easy answer to that?
An easy answer for this kind of work sounds like a Western solution, which never worked in these contexts. But that's not an excuse to throw your hands in the air and say nothing will work.
Right.
There's a lot people can do in grassroots. I mean, look what our hunger banquet did. You can throw a hunger banquet in any community and make far more money than $12,000. And there's a million and one ideas like a hunger banquet. Go to the university, that's the best place to start looking for these ideas. You can first of all get involved in international development issues by joining a club. Look for a club on your campus if you go to university. If you don't go to university, look for something in your community, some sort of church or some sort of community organization that does a lot of international work. As I've been in Africa, I've come across many different organizations, from churches to school projects in different countries to government organizations like the European Union, or just plain sponsored government projects. And so look to your government, look to your links with the local community, look to your churches, look to in short, all of those institutions that are local and extra local. You will find a link to international development issues and NGOs that you can help. They need help. They will find ways to put you to work. If they don't, there's 1,000,001 other NGOs that will need your help.
Right.
And I've done everything from that hunger banquet to host farmers markets days where we put a little sign up in the middle of Salt Lake City at a big farmers market to raise money for our NGO. And I sit for 8 hours on a Saturday afternoon. I did that 3 times this summer alone, and I raised money every time I did that. These kind of ideas, these kind of things come together as you associate with a critical mass of individuals who are involved in community development and international development issues. You will find people interested in these similar subjects.
What you did with the Hunger Banquet at BYU sort of worked like that too, in a sense, because it's not very much like the whole disenfranchised sociology class where you study for an exam and stress out and that's all there is to it.
Absolutely. The Hunger Banquet at Brigham Young University was exactly that. It was a collaboration of over 40, 50, 60 individuals who were all busy in exams and studying in class. And over the course of 5 months, we planned and executed this 2-night event and hosted speakers, big speakers that we brought in, and put on a phenomenal event that raised a phenomenal amount of money. But it took just an average bunch of kids, getting together and meeting on a weekly basis and having some commitment to an issue and a cause, and then giving a mission and a purpose to that cause in order to come up with that kind of a collective mass of people who could organize and plan such an event, because there was an extreme amount, a lot of planning to make that event happen, from getting tickets issued to getting blankets for the floor to getting the food donated from restaurants across the city to getting the speakers lined up and flown in. There's a lot to do and a lot to plan and a lot to organize. And so for anyone who feels like they can't find their niche and find the place to help out, well, if you get a few individuals together who think like you think or have the same interests and subjects that you have, that group will have great potential to change the world in one small way or one large way.
Matt, thank you so much for coming through at the last minute like this to deliver an interview and save me from certain death. We are going to be doing another interview segment with Matt as soon as we can manage about human trafficking and other important political issues that plague not only the European Union but the whole Afro-Eurasian continent. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And thank you once again for joining us here on the Open Source News. I'm Carl Segna.